Welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am your host, Tom Downey, here to break down the rumors and news around the Cowboys. We'll begin with the biggest NFL story out there right now. That is on Chris Jones. And as relates to the Cowboys, well, could they trade for him? Just the one star on this one. Now, if you go way back to the beginning of the offseason when we're looking at the top free agents the Cowboys could pursue, you best believe Chris Jones was on that list because, well, he's awesome. Now, he is threatening to not play for the Kansas City Chiefs if they don't pay him $20 million plus per year on his potentially upcoming contract extension. That, of course, led to trade speculation around Chris Jones. The problem is, as it relates to the Cowboys, as much as I would like for it to go down, the cost involved doesn't bode well for them. And Chris Jones, there's a reason he wants $20 plus million. That's what DeForest Buckner got. And remember, DeForest Buckner, just a couple months ago, went for a top 15 pick as part of a deal with the Indianapolis Colts, and then they paid him that massive contract. And as I see you guys mentioning in the comments, Jones is worth it. He's awesome. 15.5 sacks in 2018, 9 sacks because he missed some games this past year. He is one of the best young interior defensive linemen in the NFL, right up there with DeForest Buckner. He's a top 5 player at his position. That means he gets the bag. But if you're paying him $20 plus million per year, that's in addition to the contract or the cost involved in a trade. So this is a potential asking price for one Chris Jones, a 2021 first-round pick, and a 2021 third, which, yes, that does sound very familiar to the Jamal Adams cost. It's not an accident by any means. Probably valued pretty similarly by their teams. Of course, different positions, one more expensive defensive tackle versus safety. And the cost involved is why, as much as I would love to pull this off in, say, Madden, or find a way to make it work in some uncapped NFL world, I don't think the Cowboys would have much interest, nor do I think they should trade a first and pay Jones $20 million. So I'm going to type in my 0 for no. Now, had this gone down, maybe the next offseason or before the Cowboys paid Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe, maybe it would be a different story then. At that point, the Cowboys would have had a little bit more flexibility. Might have been something that they would have gone out and pursued, but they've paid Poe, they've paid McCoy. They could get out of it, but it's not going to make much sense financially. So because of that, well, the answer simply ends up being no. Let's go to Jamal Adams now. I saw this on Cowboys' local Dallas Sports Talk Radio, and I got mad. Is Jamal Adams not a scheme fit? What are you talking about? Of course Jamal Adams is a scheme fit. This is a Lombardi Broadus kind of hybrid rumor here. Claim is that, well, Adams doesn't fit the scheme. I remind you all, by the way, that the Cowboys made a very big deal this offseason about how, hey, this is going to be a players over system scheme. We're going to find players who fit our offense well. That's what's going to happen here. This claim is just stupid. Adams is an elite football player. He fits in the schemes. Whatever scheme you run, he's going to fit. Now, is Jamal Adams a rangy, dynamic, ball-hawking, single-high free safety in the mold that Earl Thomas is? No. That doesn't mean he doesn't fit your scheme. Even if you use more two-deep coverage, you can still play Jamal Adams there. He might be a box safety, but he does more than just being a box safety. He fits your scheme. And I'll tell you what, if Jamal Adams doesn't fit your scheme, fire your coaching staff. Because that means they suck, and they're not good at their job. The number one job of a coach is to maximize the players you have on your roster. If you claim a top-end safety like Jamal Adams doesn't fit your scheme, you should be fired. So does Adams fit the scheme? You can type in D for duh. I almost put an N for no shit. Or F for fire your defensive coordinator. Because those are your options. If you can't find a fit for Adams to maximize his abilities or let him continue to be the great safety that he is, this means you're bad at your job, plain and simple. All right, more safety talk here. Do the Cowboys have a top 5 safety duo? Now, I like Pro Football Focus. I don't agree with this one at all. I'm not saying it's like bottom 5 by any means, but I just have a difficult time looking around the NFL and going, yes, Clinton Dix and Xavier Woods combined are a top 5 safety duo. I kind of like this top 4 listing from Pro Football Focus. The Vikings, Patriots, Bills, and Jets. And maybe you can make an argument that things really fall apart after those top 4 and it's all kind of middling there. But the Saints were 6. I would take the Saints duo. I definitely take the Ravens duo. We've played that game before, folks. Denver, I think, has the most underrated safety duo in the NFL. Seattle, I like Diggs, not so much McDougal. The Chiefs should be way higher than 10. Tyrann Mathieu, Juan Thornhill, they should be number 5. The Steelers don't have a number 2 option. I get that. You can make arguments for the Titans and for the Chargers. And I think the reasoning for Pro Football Focus here is that Clinton Dix and Xavier Woods, they are good in coverage. And that matters a lot for Pro Football Focus. They are all about coverage and the passing game, and I get that. But missed tackles, kind of a big-time red flag. And Xavier Woods was not the same guy he was in the first half compared to the second half of last year. And Clinton Dix has bounced around from several teams right now. So I think this is a, frankly, probably one of the better safety duos the Cowboys have put together in several years. Of course, that's not saying a ton because the safety grouping has always been a bit of an issue. So where do you guys rank that Cowboys safety duo, Clinton Dix and Xavier Woods, across the NFL? Where do they rank? I see Cal Fielding say, get Jamal, they could be number 1. Seems fair. I see 10th, 11th, 8th, 10th, 11th, 10th to 15th, 9th or 10th, 8th, 11th. I see 2. I see A5. I see 11. I see 30th. It's not 30th, I promise you that, my friend. 10, 11, 12. So you're kind of either just inside, just outside of number 10 overall. I think that's fair. I think that's pretty accurate. Top 5? No way on that one. Now, speaking of safe, hope you guys are staying safe and wearing your masks out there. Head over to chatsports.com/CowboysMask. If you don't have one, there are a whole bunch of styles and variety available. They've got 3-packs. They've got single ones. Go check it out, chatsports.com/CowboysMask. I like that new version, by the way. What I am about to say is very selfish, but I need sports, okay? I need them. So please wear a mask so that my sports and your sports can come back. All I'm asking for. So if you don't already have one, look, it's in the comments, in the description. Go check out what they have to offer. I've given 2 fake newses to start off today's show, so time to be a little bit more optimistic. Not so much of the Debbie Downey here, if you will. Dak Contract Progress. Is it coming? 4 stars. Now, I'm not promising it's going to get done because I can't do that yet. But I can promise that with the deadline coming, it's going to happen. The 2 sides are going to revisit and talks will return. The deadline for an extension, July 15th. That is rapidly approaching. We are inside of 2 weeks away. Now, my suspicion is that maybe they kind of revisit talks, after the 4th of July weekend, and they let, visit families, all that. I get that. The main issue, of course, still remains on the length of contract. And if you can't get over a 1-year difference, kind of think you've done something horribly wrong. Frankly, both parties will get blamed at that point. Again, as a reminder, Dak wants 4 years. The Cowboys prefer 5 years, which does lead to a difference in the way you are evaluating a player and a contract. You see it right there on your screen. It's more expensive to go with a shorter-term deal, just comparing to those years, because you can backload a typical contract. So please keep that in mind, but I do think we'll get some progress on Dak in the near future. And, of course, we're going to keep you updated on everything around Dak Prescott. So if you want breaking news, if and when he signs, or if he doesn't sign on that July 15th deadline, guess what? We'll be live that day, I promise you. So we got almost 400 people watching live right now. I bet not all of you are subscribed. So if you are not, I'm not sure what you guys are waiting for. Hit that big red button and do it today. Let's go now to some cornerback talk. Is Trevon Diggs going to be CB1 in Week 1? I'm not going to get my hopes up for this. I'm only going to give it the 1 star. It is possible, but I think things are working against Diggs, especially in light of COVID and the fact that it's not going to be a normal offseason for him. That's just where we're at right now for Diggs and for the Cowboys. And not only that, it's a pretty high expectation to expect a second-round rookie to come in and immediately be your number 1 corner. there is an adjustment period. There has to be time for this corner who is still fairly raw coming out to begin with to develop into being a full-time NFL player. Diggs has flashes, don't get me wrong. There's upside there. I hope he's a little bit faster than what I saw on film, but he needs some time to grow. That's the nature of being a young player, especially at a spot like corner, where historically speaking, is a little bit more of an adjustment period required for that to really fully grow. So I think Diggs at some point and hopefully becomes that number one corner, but I think it's far more likely Awuzie or Anthony Brown or Jordan Lewis or hell, maybe Darryl Worley for week one ends up being that number one guy. So I like Diggs. There's a lot of promise there, but to expect a second-round player to come in day one and be your number one corner, that's just setting yourself up for, even if it's a good season, some unrealistic disappointment. So who do you guys think is the Cowboys' number one corner? I know you're all in on the Diggs hype train. I will come back to this middle of the season if Diggs is struggling and try to say, hey, I tried to warn you guys a little bit. Winston says, sadly, Cheeto. I think that's right. Awuzie gets a bit of a rough billing from some Cowboys fans. He's not a true number one guy. He's also not nearly as bad as some of us want to say. I see mostly Awuzie's in there, and I think that's about right. Let's go to linebacker now. Jaylon Smith, is he going to have a bounce-back season? I certainly hope so, and he better. 3 stars on this one, though. There's some very promising, I don't know if it's faith or arguments, but whichever way you want to go there, to believe that it's going to end up happening. And first off, as I've said before, Cowboys need it too, because he was not the same guy last year. He was never playing at the same level we saw back in 2018. The numbers bear that out. And Pro Football Focus, it's just one viewpoint, but it's normally a pretty good one. The overall grades, they dipped. The run defense was actually better, but despite the tackling being better, the 2 most important areas were not coverage and pass rush. And my hope for this new Mike Nolan defense is that, A, Nolan, who has a background in being a defensive guy at linebacker, who was a linebackers coach before this and has been before, he's going to maximize Jaylon Smith. And we know he can blitz. I think that will lead to some better results. And as I've made this point before, the PFF grades are often benefited for players if the entire team is doing better. I think that's what you saw last year. Defense took a step back. Everyone's grades fell as well. Some news now here around the Cowboys and the preseason. The report and the expectation, not quite officially official, is that the preseason has been cut in half, which means week 1 and week 4 are on the outs. Now, the NFL has not announced if it's going to play the week 2 and week 3 planned games. That would make some sense, and then balance out home and away at that point, or if they try and adjust at that point. But it's an interesting path here. So what's going to end up happening for the Cowboys in the NFL, I believe, is that camp's going to still plan to open around July 28th on time. And the ramp-up period for camp, it's going to end up being longer. Since week 1 is not there for the preseason games, the new week 1 becomes August 20th and 24th. So you have an extra week of camp time in theory. Then you have extra time after camp ends. And then week 1 still September 13th. So that's the hopeful plan here for the Cowboys. Of course, we say hopeful because there had better be a season in 2020. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.